full of these, like, that's how it was. Like, they'd be preparing for a run. It would take them a week to prepare, and they'd do a run then maybe Friday or Saturday night, and about 90 or 100 of them they'd make, then when that would be a run, like. So they produced roughly 100 a week, like, for the 6 months that they were running, the 7 months that they were running for, like. So it was quite a lot, and then there was the second factory over there that had the output at all. Yeah, that factory was built into the glen, and a river went down over the door of it. You'd walk in through the river, you'd walk in through a waterfall, like it was real, you know, James Bond kind of stuff. Well hidden. And it was hidden, well hidden. But they had a petrol engine driving the fan. Like it was all based on a barrel, and the barrel was lined inside with clay and fire brick, and they had a draft going into the barrel, and to drive the furnace. So they had layers of coke and a layer of metal and a layer of lime, and they would build that up. And of course it was quite small, I suppose, by the time you had the barrel lined with bricks inside. But in the Craig's factory it was hand driven. It was fire machines actually, the old fire machines. They had 2 sets of fire machines, and they had them onto a forge. You ever see a forge machine? They had the big belt, and they had the big belt going down to the forge machine, and they had 2 men then working the forge machine. And I remember my uncle, he actually became a founder engineer on Irish Steel afterwards. It was very funny, like, do you know what I mean? He knew all about metal. He worked in Kellogg's in the United States after the Troubles. He went to the United States for 20 years, so he came back in 1940. I think it was 1943 was it that Irish Steel was started. But he was a founder member there, like, and he worked there for years. But actually he left it over point of principle because there was engineers appointed over political appointees. Like, he was very straight man and brilliant at principles is what I said. But what was it? Oh yeah, there was 2 furnaces going into the furnace in the one of the Crays. One was a bigger one being blown in, and the small one was directing the second furnace. So they kind of created a vortex of air inside, so that it was a higher temperature. Because I remember saying that too much air passing through would reduce the temperature as well. Do you know what I mean? So it was quite a technical operation, and he's going into all the detail and all the technicalities of it, like, you know. But to get a suitable fine metal mix that would shatter like that, that's obviously almost a successful grenade, whereas this one, you can see there's air bubbles in this. You know, but for their time, I mean, grenades, the Mills grenade came out in 1916, and this is 1920. So, like, you know, there was no plastic, there was no electricity or anything in you know, that they could use at the time. So it was quite an advanced, it was quite an accomplishment for, you know, rural setting. Now, one of the reasons why Knockraha was chosen both for the prison and for the bomb factories, there was no telephone.
Well, that's us in
the nearest telephone was Dammoire. And all of this, fully understood how a telephone worked. There was still, you know, they were kind of suspicious. If there was one in an area, somehow could leak information. Do you know what I mean? This is 1920, whereas Carricktool now had a big problem, especially with spies and that kind of stuff, like. And then the roads here were so bad. I remember seeing in the report, the roads here were so bad that the British military could have been nothing significant happening in Knockraha, like, you know. So, and of course, I suppose everybody would be seen coming and going, and they had a good idea of what would be going on, you know. But it was an enormous accomplishment, it was just all local farmer sons that were involved, and it was just, he was the driving force, he was the engineer. They had the plans, and who set it up and funded it was Sean McSweeney, Thomas McSweeney's brother. He was the connection. He was to come out here. He was the connection between Cork Number 1 Brigade and the local company here. And as he was it as well who kept, like, they had to get a budget, they had to buy certain things, and they bought a water, a big cast iron water trough. They had to get funding for that. I think the first outlay cost £21, like, and that had to be okayed by Cork Number 1 Brigade. So there was a tight rein kept on money, like. There was a lot of money that time. You know, there was a lot of money that time. And I often heard it said by De Valera, we talk about finance now, like, or by Martin Corrie. Every year they'd have to put their expenses in front of De Valera, like, for the year's work as a politician, like, you know, and it might come to like £4, 10 shillings, like, and you would have to justify the whole list. like, can you imagine politicians today, like, and the expenses they getting, like, you know, it was a different time, a different ethos. But, and they got paid in, as after the truce then, they got, when the truce was in July 1921, they went overground and they made grenades, but they got paid in for making those grenades, 1 and 6pence. So they paid off all their bills below in Carricktool. They had bills, they ran up tabs in the local pubs in Carricktool, because Carricktool and O'Connor had a great connection, like the companies. Actually, it was Johnny Roach, you know, Roach's Garage in Carricktool. Johnny Roach, because he came up with the idea of the prison here underground. And what happened was, in the first dawn in 1918, because the RSC were cleared of the countryside at that time, and Carricktool Barracks was the first barracks to be taken. And the idea was, once you put the RSC barracks out of commission, the military were getting no information then. So, you know, there was robbers and things in the countryside, so we had the IRA court set up. So they had courts, but they started prison sentences then, and Bally's-Court Castle was the first jail, you know. And there's various stories there in the books about fellas that were put into jail in Bally's-Court. The biggest thing in Bally's-Court Castle was ridden with rats. And that was the biggest problem. Fellas couldn't sleep with the rats because the rats would go to eat them at night, like with an awful sentence. But they were able to escape out of Bally's-Court Castle and everything. So various gentry's houses then were taken and everything. And eventually it was Johnny Roach came because he had a car and he was be driving people to funerals, and he knew about all the different graveyards, and he knew about the vault here in the graveyard. And of course the history of that, of course, is that was, well, it's assumed that the way it was set out is that initially in the end of the 17th century that it was a vault that if you were rich enough you could put your body in there, you'd pay till it was no good to science, because there was big money to be taken out of robbing bodies out of graves, fresh bodies, and selling them for medical purposes, like medical research. And that's why it was done up and reinforced, and that's why the iron doors were in it. But previous to that, it has a history, and that was there, it was there already, and it was actually part of a monastery, that it was an underground vault in a monastery that was burnt in 1680 by some, you know, overzealous or crown forces, you know. So, and then the church was set up over in Eileen, up on top of the hill. There was a church set up there then, and that survived till, was it 1802, when the church in Knockcraha was built. And any questions on how to make grenades?